Welcome into Weather Extra. I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor. It's been a wild week of weather all across the Lone Star State, including right here in central Texas. We've had multiple rounds of storms move through, bringing strong, at times damaging winds and also hail up to baseball size. So what you're looking at right here is some of the damage that we saw in the Aquila area after storms moved through on Memorial Day. Throughout the week, throughout the work week, additional rounds of storms impacted our area as well, including Wednesday. We had large hail impact some of our western counties. Now, the one good thing from all this severe weather is we have seen some beneficial rain, and that helped put our monthly rain back to around normal for the month of May. Now, cities and towns across South Texas were hit the hardest when it comes to the storms over the last week when it comes to severe weather. First Alert meteorologist Jillian Johnson has more on what some of those areas saw.
Numerous rounds of severe storms hit south central Texas throughout the past week. San Antonio and surrounding areas saw 2 rounds of flash flooding, both Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Local law enforcement conducted 8 different water rescues due to the heavy rainfall. The city of San Antonio broke an 85-year-old rainfall record this past Wednesday. And even deeper south into Texas, Brownsville also saw strong thunderstorms midweek. These storms brought 40-mile-per-hour winds, pea-sized hail, and torrential rains. Some localized flooding was also reported in these areas. Texas's capital city of Austin saw significant damage from a severe thunderstorm on Wednesday as well. 1 person was killed in a flash flood event, and local law enforcement conducted around a dozen water rescues due to rapidly rising floodwaters. This thunderstorm also produced wind gusts between 70 and 80 miles per hour as it plowed through the central and eastern parts of the city. Those winds are equivalent to the force experienced during a Category 1 hurricane. Those winds knocked down large trees, fences, and of course power lines, which left over 50,000 people without power. This storm also brought intense hail to the Austin area. Many saw scenes like you're seeing right now, where a ton of hail fell from the sky and blanketed yards and streets. There were also confirmed reports of hail up to 2 inches, which is around the size of hen eggs, which caused significant damage to cars and other things outdoors.
Sunday, June the 1st marks the start of the Atlantic hurricane season, and forecasters are once again calling for an above normal season. For a forecast, or the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, and a look at that, we check with First Alert meteorologist Sean Bellafiore.
The 2025 Atlantic hurricane season kicks off on June 1st, and it is expected to be another year with an above normal activity in the tropical Atlantic. This is 2024. Of course, we had 2 major Category 5 hurricanes, Beryl and Milton, Beryl being the earliest Category 5 on record, impacting parts of the western Gulf, including Texas. Now, every year, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration releases an outlook as far as what they think the storms are going to be, how many of them. Last year, we had 18 named storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 major hurricanes, and both the preseason and mid-season outlook were pretty much right in line with what happened. Now, for this season, we are again seeing a forecast for more storms than normal. 13 to 19 from NOAA for named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Colorado State University, one of the leaders in some hurricane research, they come out with an outlook every year. 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes. This is that name list that we'll be seeing here in 2025. One new name to the list this year, that is Dexter, replacing Dorian, which of course devastated the Bahamas back in 2019. One of the main drivers of this year's hurricane season could be a returning La Nina. La Nina is a cooler than normal area of water off the the Pacific coast rather of South America that can hypercharge the Atlantic hurricane season. It's about a 34% chance for that, but a 53% chance of neutral conditions, which honestly don't go one way or the other. Sea surface temperatures 80 degrees or above are usually what we need for tropical development, and of course the Gulf, the Caribbean, they are seeing those higher sea surface temperatures already, which is typical for the beginning of the season. We don't usually look out all the way into the tropical Atlantic, but during the month of June we keep our attention close to home. Storms can form in the Gulf or in the western Caribbean, and they typically track towards Florida or potentially towards Texas. We'll, of course, keep a watch out for you. Reporting in the studio, Sean Bellafiore, KWTX News 10.
Well, thank you, Sean. And the Pacific hurricane season kicked off back on May 15th. And there's already been a named storm that formed off the coast of Mexico. The first named storm of the Pacific season developed on Thursday, May 29th. The storm was given the name Alvin. Thankfully, Alvin did not strengthen much, but it brought some gusty winds and some rainfall to the mainland of Mexico. And take a look at this. This is crazy here. This is the moment a huge section of a glacier collapsed in Switzerland on Wednesday. The Birch Glacier broke apart and sent millions of cubic tons or cubic meters of ice, mud, and rocks crashing into the village of Blanton. Authorities said the landslide wiped out most of the village. Now, thankfully, residents had evacuated a week earlier. However, one person is still missing, according to the area emergency response spokesman. Officials say it may take years before the area recovers. Now, coming up next on Weather Xtra, we'll learn more about a new report from top meteorological agencies that shows recording record-breaking heat, a major story across the planet and likely over the next decade. We'll have more on that once we come back. Welcome back to Weather Xtra. A new report predicts there's no sign of relief when it comes to warming temperatures over the next 5 years. The World Meteorological Organization issued the annual report this past Wednesday, and it predicts global temperatures will reach record or near record levels between now and 2029. In fact, the report found a 70% chance that average temperatures will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius above the period before humans began burning large amounts of fossil fuels. That takes the world a step closer to breaching the Paris Climate Agreement. Last year was the hottest year on record for the globe, and according to the report, there's an 80% chance that at least 1 year between 2025 and 2029 will be the warmest year on record. A new quest for climate change data has taken a team of scientists to the top of the world. Dr. Baker Perry and his team are building weather stations in extreme locations all over the world, and including Earth's highest peak, Mount Everest. Take a look.
I'm back on Everest for my 4th expedition.
It's an ambitious scientific project that has taken this team of researchers to the most extreme environments on Earth.
We set up a network of weather stations from 12,500 feet all the way up to 27,000 feet. Hi, everyone. Baker.
Tasked with a single objective: to study the impacts of a rapidly changing environment from the world's highest locations.
Explain to me just the ultimate goal of what you are trying to achieve up there.
Our weather station network is really well poised to monitor and provide valuable data to make better projections of how the glaciers will respond to climate change.
I spoke with National Geographic explorer and Nevada State climatologist Dr. Baker Perry during his most recent expedition back to Mount Everest.
We know more about the weather on Mars than we do on the highest peaks of the Himalaya here on our planet. It's critical to have a station here on the glacier.
It's a mission that began in 2019, documented by the National Geographic and Rolex Perpetual Planet Everest expedition.
This is critical in the context of climate change and water resources, and the fact that we've got hundreds of millions of people that live downstream from these water towers that sustain the communities.
Vital, too, for other environmentally stressed regions across the globe, including Argentina, where in February, Dr. Perry led researchers on a similar mission in the Andes, to Aconcagua, the highest peak in the Americas. The Waiwa Project, an international collaboration between the U.S., Argentina, and multiple research institutions, installed weather stations along the mountain glaciers to monitor conditions, and added a crucial link in collecting meteorological information around the world.
The weather station network is critical for improving our understanding of climate change.
Now, the team has already collected some important information about the sun, precipitation, and the impacts they have on meltwater and freshwater surrounding communities. Up next on Weather Xtra, we're going to hear from Dr. Jose Hernandez, his inspirational story of how he went from a boy working as a migrant farm worker to achieving his dream of becoming an astronaut. We'll hear more from Dr. Hernandez right after the break. Well, welcome back to Weather Extra. Now, many kids dream of being an astronaut, but since 1959, there's only been 360 people that have fulfilled that dream. In this week's Degrees of Science, I had the chance to speak with former astronaut Dr. Jose Hernandez, who grew up as a migrant farm worker with the dream of becoming an astronaut. And despite being rejected by NASA 11 times, he never gave up on his dream. Your story is amazing. When did you first kind of spark that dream of loving space and maybe potentially being an astronaut?
Well, I grew up in the era of the original Star Trek series, first run on TV. And of course, that sort of piques your interest in space. And then I was lucky enough to catch the very last Apollo mission. That was Apollo 17 in 1972, if I remember correctly. And it was a cold December evening when I saw astronaut Gene Cernan walk on the surface of the moon. And I just remember saying, I want to be like him. I want to be an astronaut.
You wrote this really awesome autobiography that was so good that it actually became a movie, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But two of the chapters in this book really focus on your parents. How big were they in pushing your hard work and the importance of education on you?
I think they were very important, very instrumental. My parents only have a third grade education, yet they were wise enough to feed the dream, because that same evening that I saw Gene Cernan walk on the moon, I told my dad I wanted to be an astronaut, and he did two amazing things. First, he validates the dream and says, I think you can do it. And then he gave me a simple 5-ingredient recipe. He said, you want to do this, follow these 5 steps. And I said, what are they? He said, first, determine your purpose in life. Recognize how far you are. Second, third, draw yourself a roadmap so you know how to get there. Fourth, prepare yourself according to the challenge. And fifth and final, develop a work ethic second to none. And I did that. I added 6th ingredient, which is perseverance. Which means never giving up on yourself. Human tendency is to give up after 3 failures. I tell people I wanted it so bad. NASA rejected me not 3, 4, or 5 times, but it was 11 times. It wasn't until the 12th time that I was finally invited to be part of the 19th class of NASA astronauts.
Again, in your documentary, or your autobiography, first person you acknowledge in your acknowledgments is your 2nd grade teacher, Miss Young. So why was she so important in molding your future moving forward?
Because she, like my father, also believed in me. At that time, we were moving 3 different school districts a year, starting in Southern, then Central, then Northern California, and then going to Mexico for 3 months. Not a very conducive environment to learn the English language, much less the material. When I told her we were going to Mexico for 3 months, she basically got frustrated and came to our house to explain to my parents the importance of staying in one place so the kids can get an education.
What was kind of the process you went through to get to eventually to NASA?
You get your first rejection and you think nothing of it because you say, well, you're kind of young. You need more experience. And then I got my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rejection. And by that time, I was fed up. I said, it looks like I'm not going to become an astronaut. I gave up. I was giving up. I scrunched it up and threw it on the garbage can, which I missed, and it landed on the floor. And my wife saw it. She picked it up. She read it. And she said, this guy's giving up on me. So she confronted me. She called me out. She went straight for the jugular. She said, so you're a quitter. And those were fighting words. I said, no, I'm trying to justify why I didn't get selected. And she makes me read the last line of the letter. And it said, please feel free to reapply again at our next selection cycle. And she said, look, I agree NASA didn't want you these past 6 selection cycles, but you don't know if they want you on the 7th, 8th, or 9th. She says, I will tell you, you won't get selected if you don't apply. On my 12th try, finally invited me to be part of the 19th class of NASA astronauts.
Finally get into the class, you get assigned to STS number 128 with Space Shuttle Discovery, and I guess to fit in your kind of bumpy road, you're cleared to go, and then you'll run into 2 delays that you couldn't launch, one due to weather and one to technical issues. What was going through your head when y'all got delayed from launch there those couple days?
Well, nothing much really, because, I was 10 when that dream was conceived of me wanting to be an astronaut. I was 47 when I was going to go up. That's 37 years in the making. So 1, 2 days, a week delay was not gonna affect me at all, because I said, I'm going to space. One way or the other, I'm gonna go to space. And that's what happened.
So you wrote your autobiography, Reaching for the Star. It's a great book. For people that maybe haven't read the book, they may have heard of the movie A Million Miles Away. It's on Amazon Prime. How crazy is it that you have a movie about your life that was made?
It's crazy. I still can't believe it. I mean, it's kind of like leaving the ultimate legacy, right? And it turned out great because they based it on my book. I never thought I didn't have the last say in the production of the movie, but I was involved in the production, and the director was so careful in taking into consideration my recommendations that we were very happy with the end product.
Before the break, we introduced you to Dr. Jose Hernandez's story. Now we're going to hear how he achieved his dream of traveling to space aboard Space Shuttle Discovery. Take a listen. What was that launch process like as you are getting ready, loading up, and then eventually launching into space?
Well, as you practice climbing into the space shuttle before, but the first time you do it when you're really going, it's a lot different, because when you practice, the shuttle's not fueled. And most of the fuel is cryogenic in the form of liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen. So all of a sudden, when you go up the 195-foot elevator and you get off and you walk the gantry to the shuttle's entrance, it's kind of like you're going into the belly of a beast. It's alive. You hear the creaking and moaning of the cryogenic fuel with the metal shrinking, expanding. And I'll tell you, blast off is just amazing, because you hear the 3 engines rotor life, and then all of a sudden you hear and feel the vibrations of the 2 solid rocket boosters a second later that comes on. And now you're getting ready to go somewhere, because those puppies you can't turn off once you turn them on. And then you're off to the races. It's only an 8.5-minute trip to space. You go from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour in 8.5 minutes. So truly an amazing. Once you're up there, you're going around the world once every 90 minutes.
So what was that feeling like when y'all did make it up there, finished the 8-minute trip, and you experienced weightlessness and being in space the first time? What was going on at that point?
Well, you never get tired of 0G. I mean, that's the thing. It's about an hour and a half before I can get up. I was a flight engineer, so the pilots and I are the last ones to unstrap. Even though we're in a 0G environment, we're still strapped to our seats. And I remember the first time I unbuckled it, the seatbelt, I start floating up, and you feel like a superhero, because you're defying all the laws of gravity as we know it here on Earth. Up there, you're floating, you're flying. And so you have this superhero moment, said, wow, this is pretty cool.
So one more question about being up there, and I'm gonna steal this one from Oprah, just because, I mean, she's gonna ask better questions than I do. So right after your mission, you interviewed with her. She asked you a great question. What was it like looking back at Earth the first time from when you were up in Discovery?
Oh, yes, that was that was one of the best moments I remember that I relive in my mind. We were flying over North America when that happened. As I unbuckled my seatbelt and did my best Superman impersonation to go down to the middeck to change clothes, the window's on the way. So I said, I'm going to stop and take a look at our planet. This is a view 500 or so people have the privilege of seeing out of more than 8 billion people now in the world. As I saw North America, what struck me as beautiful and in awe was that I was able to make out Canada, the US, and Mexico, and then Central America. But what struck me so beautiful was I couldn't tell where one country ended and another began. And I said, wow, I had to go out of this world to come to the realization that borders are human-made concepts designed to separate us, and how sad, because from my perspective up here, down there, we're just one race. We're the human race. And it would be great if our world leaders can get this moment of reflection, and I would guarantee you that there will be a lot less conflict in the world if that was to occur.
So you reach your goal, you become an astronaut, but you've still got a lot of life to live. You've done a lot of promoting, whether it's STEM-related fields or diversity in STEM. How important is that for you moving forward?
I think it's very important. When I left NASA, I opened up my own aerospace consulting firm, Tierra Luna Engineering, and also I've written 2 more books. I'm working on my 4th book now. I have an education component in my company where we make sure we go out and talk to kids and make sure that we promote careers in STEM, because I think it's so important for us to remain competitive in this global economy. The U.S. needs to graduate more scientists and engineers. And so that's what we try to do, is we try to get all segments of society interested in STEM careers.
Well, if you'd like to hear more about Dr. Hernandez's inspirational story in this episode of Degrees of Science, you can scan this QR code right here behind me. It'll take you to our YouTube page, or you can head over to our website, KWTX.com/Degrees of Science. Well, that's all we have for you this week on Weather Extra. We'll see you right back here next weekend.